start off, I want to say thank you for being one of my very first interviewees, because this is all a bit of an experiment for me as well. And it's something that a lot of the Robogalia readers have been asking for and have wanted to see some diverse pathways in plant pathology as well. So obviously, you and I have come across each other in the metal rust space and sort of the forest pathology space. So yeah, thank you, Darryl, for joining today.
Pleasure.
I just wanted to, I guess we can just get started with perhaps a little bit of a background into who you are and where you're based and what you're working on at the moment as well.
All right. Yeah, well, we know how we as scientists love experiments, so it's good to try and play around with this. I'm happy to be the first guinea pig as well. So I'm hoping it'll be a nice series for everyone to actually listen to and read about as well, and maybe get some inspiration, some hope perhaps too. So some background about myself. So I'm originally from South Africa. I did my postgraduate studies pretty much there. I was based at the University of Pretoria, and I was there from 2004, and I graduated 2025 with a PhD. So I was there for quite a long time. Currently now I'm based in New Zealand, in a lovely part of the country in Rotorua, central in the North Island, in the Bay of Plenty. And I'm working here as a team lead in the ecology, environment and ecology and environment research group. And I'm the team lead for Pathogen Diagnostics and Collections.
Awesome. So how long have you been in that role as team lead?
So I've been in this role now. I actually started remotely. So I joined Scion during the COVID pandemic.
Right.
So I wasn't able to move directly. There was obviously those issues around flights and having to be in quarantine space. So I started in 2019. I was originally meant to go in 2019, 2020. Only got to New Zealand in 2021. And so I did some part-time work for a little while. I actually ended up with two different roles when I started. So when I started, I was a research associate, and then the organization was going through a bit of a restructure. I also had a different boss, and then got another boss when I actually came into New Zealand, and then I was a team lead when that whole restructure happened. So assistant researcher for a year, and then a team lead for the last 4.5 years.
Yeah. How did you manage doing a diagnostics type role remotely? What were your responsibilities in that time?
I wasn't. I was basically working with a team, but I wasn't leading. We had another team leader, a sister pathology group, the Pathogen Ecology and Control. She was looking after, so that's Dr. Rebecca McDougall. She was looking after the team while I was still in South Africa. So most of the work I ended up doing was a lot of desktop stuff. So I was learning the system, so learning how their diagnostic process was working for the Forest Health Reference Laboratory. And I was kind of being CC'd into all of that information, running through typical diagnostics, how the database worked, how samples were being tracked, the kind of reporting. And so I worked mainly just on things like reviews, helping put together literature, looking at proposals, helping contribute to proposals. So I wasn't in a full-time role. I was doing 15 to 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was still doing the PhD and still doing my role at the University of Pretoria as well, which was at that stage, I was an extension officer for the tree protection cooperative program, the TPCP.
Yeah. So it's about to ask you a very broad question, but how did you go about managing all of that at one time? Because obviously a PhD is a huge endeavor in itself. And so then you've gone and you're doing a couple of roles as well at the same time. yeah, how are you managing all
I don't think I was.
of yeah,
Not
yeah.
well. The nice thing about the extension role was that I was in field about 2 weeks of a month,
Mm,
and I was doing field work for that time. But there was a bit of downtime in between, so I could get onto those, like writing on with kind of the manuscripts for the PhD, and I could do some of that remote stuff. And because of the time zone difference, I was doing some of the meetings that I was responsible for, kind of either early morning or in the evenings. So I
yeah,
just had really long days.
yeah,
So some good time management, I think. Just some of the roles provided some of the time as well. But it did move things slower. It often meant that my PhD was taking the back seat because it wasn't the priority.
yeah,
Being able to do the jobs that I was getting paid a salary for was the priority.
yeah, yeah. And I guess so. What was the decision behind choosing to do some work on the side? Like, was it obviously, PhD funding isn't huge if you're lucky to get it as
Mm.
well. Was it more of a financial decision, or was it driven by the types of roles, or just a general desire to dive into another project while you're doing PhD?
Yeah. Well, it goes back really to when I started my honors. So I had, like you say, funding. Sometimes you're lucky if you can get it. If you can't get it, yeah, perhaps you've got parents that can support you, or you're taking a student loan, taking that on yourself. We were quite fortunate so I was at FABI, the Forestry and Agricultural Biotechnology Institute. They had some really supportive partners who could help contribute to scholarships. So I did have a scholarship, but it wasn't extensive by any means. So I had tuition paid for, and I had a small stipend in my honors. But there were opportunities that the institute was creating for students to get some work experience, and you can get paid, or they advertise it as a top up on
Yeah,
your bursary or your stipend. So one of the roles that opened up was actually in diagnostics. So that was to work in the diagnostics lab as a technician, and my supervisor encouraged me to take up that role, and I did it for a year. Got a bit busy. It was quite busy. It was quite demanding, and then stepped away for a year, and then came back in again because I found that I really enjoyed it.
yeah,
And so I did that in my honors, and then I did it into my masters, and then basically continued on with that. And the extra top up really helped. That was one reason, but the other was just that experience. I'd enjoyed diagnostics, and I enjoyed working on other organisms as well. So not just what my actual postgrad studies were focused on, the masters or the PhD, which was mostly fusarium, but I got to work with other forest health issues, which were not only important in South Africa, but elsewhere in the world. So it was also an opportunity to learn about these other organisms and gain that experience so that if I was looking further ahead for a role, it would stand me in good stead. And so I basically continued that into my PhD.
yeah, yeah. No, it's really interesting to hear that you started that as early as your honors, and we can kind of go into a little bit more detail about what your current role is and where you've managed to get after your PhD and even during your PhD.
Mm.
But to start with an experience that early and really get that experience during honors, how pivotal do you think that was to what you're currently doing now in your role?
Yeah. So starting off early, kind of half my time basically was spent diagnostics. So it was a role. I mean, I think it could have been a full-time role. We had quite a lot. So our diagnostic lab really looked after the commercial forestry industry in South Africa. So very atypical to something you'd come across in Australia or even here in New Zealand, where you've got a actual NPPO that looks after diagnostics. This is a university at a private institute that was supporting the industry. I mean, there are other research or government-funded research institutes in South Africa, like the trying to think of the name now, Agricultural Research Council, that provides services to the agriculture sector. They can help with diagnostics, they can help with planting advice, all those kinds of things, but you didn't have a national institute that did that for forestry. And so that was quite good because we got the funding to do it. And we had kind of that volume as well, which was really good to support our roles. And yeah, so early on getting in, I got a lot of experience. I kind of went through the system, becoming more senior, being able to do a lot more things on my own. Some students that were much more quicker with their degrees would come and do it for a couple of years, get their degrees, graduate and leave. I managed to stay on for quite a while, so I helped with some of that training. And then eventually when my boss and the lab boss, and then the actual PI, the professor who was looking after those services, when they moved on to private companies, there was an opportunity then for me to step up as the manager for that lab. And that happened only in my PhD, and only because my bosses had stepped or taken on other opportunities. So that wouldn't have been possible if I hadn't been in the diagnostic lab for that many years. So that was like, I got to do some maths, probably 6-7 years before I was offered a management role.
Yeah, okay. So it's quite an extensive amount of experience in leading up to a management position. Yeah. And so you obviously had that experience in South Africa, which was very transferable to doing that in New Zealand. What drove you to make the move to New Zealand?
So that, it was quite interesting because I wasn't actually looking for a job. The role was given to one of my colleagues who's from Australia, or rather, I should say, it wasn't given to her, but she'd been part of the interview process and had made it right to that final step. She was a postdoctoral fellow working at FABI and decided she just wasn't really finished with South Africa. There was some research she still wanted to do. She really did fall in love with the place and wanted to stay around. So she was like, oh, they're still looking for candidates. If you want, you've got the same skill set they would be after. You should think about it. So I got in touch. We met actually at a conference with some of the recruiting party. So that at that stage was Nari Williams, Stuart Fraser, and Lindsay Bowman, who were interested in filling this role, and they'd been looking for a while. So it was hard at that stage, and also just before COVID, very difficult to bring people into the country. Just based on visas, and then trying to find talent in the country was quite challenging, I'm told. And so I was like, all right, I haven't really been for a job interview. I've been quite lucky in a lot of the roles I've got where I've been either I know the people or I've been working in that space. People know me and I was given jobs. So some of the advice I read when you were getting close to finishing a PhD was try and get your CV together and think about interviews and practicing for those and try applying for jobs. And if you get interviews, just try those. Go to those interviews, take part, see what people are looking for, and get some experience. So I was like, okay, well, I've got nothing to lose. I'm not looking to leave the country immediately. If I get the job, great. If I don't get the job, that's fine. Yeah, so get it, don't get it, it didn't really matter. So there was less pressure on me, I think. But I put my name in the hat, so I applied, and they contacted me for an interview and did the interviews and got the job. And I was like, wow, okay. And so like you say, I was like, wow, okay, now I'm gonna make a decision. Am I going to New Zealand or I'm gonna stay in South Africa? And it was at the time of COVID, so it was quite challenging to figure out what I'd do, because I also was worried that if I left and didn't like it, I couldn't get back.
It was a really bizarre time, wasn't it? Because you think a lot of these companies and organizations probably would have been looking internally within their own countries for talent, and in some countries it was even within cities as well that they couldn't move. So it was really challenging.
It was.
And I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, and it's something that I have come across. So Australia has a they've put together this a plan for plant diagnostics in Australia, and they're really looking to become a world leader in plant diagnostics. And touching on something you just said as well was about finding talent. And in this plan as well, they've identified that one of the key challenges is to source talent and retain talent. And it's really interesting because, at least in Australia, I don't see a lot of people going through PhDs in plant pathology anymore. And there, we had the Australian Plant Pathology Conference not that long ago, and there were probably a lot less people there than what we would have hoped as well to see. Do you see the same sort of trends in New Zealand as well? So obviously we're talking a few years ago when you came on, but is it still those same trends that you're seeing there? Is it hard to find people working in plant pathology and to source talent and retain talent?
Yes. So I think those skills are lacking. People being trained in that is lacking. Plant pathology, maybe like in general, you probably there's probably more scope, right, for somebody who's been in traditional. I didn't do plant pathology actually. I did microbiology, but I was at an institute that was doing a lot of plant health, which really gave me that experience. We did have a plant pathology course, and a lot of those people were in agriculture. In forestry, I mean, some of the skills are translational. You can take somebody who's been working on potatoes and work on pine. You just have to learn the system. It's vice versa as well. I think I'd also struggle if I wanted to be a potato pathologist. But you kind of understand just the concepts, but you need to learn the system, learn the pathogens. How do you isolate them? I've been working on fungi, probably on potato. There's probably a lot more bacterial issues, then you have to. So we had a lot of youngsters, for instance, like an example I have is we were hiring some technicians and even some leaders here when I arrived, and we really struggled to find people with just experience. Like you get a couple of PhDs, even some masters that were coming out, but they literally had like a year. And you're like, we need people to come in, really get up to speed quite quickly. We can't really train them on the job. And they need to be like at a level where they're starting to write their own proposals, bring in revenue. And it was tough to find people. And then those that you're looking for are, quite well established, are now demanding higher salaries that we couldn't be paying. Had extensive experience. Some of them don't even, that level aren't even in the lab anymore. So it was this real interesting. We need people to work in the lab, but we also need them to be leaders and bring in revenue as well. So that's quite challenging for us. You're trying to get everything into one role, but that's not really possible. So so hard to find. There's no real pipeline at the moment where we have people coming in, here that are trained at university, have some internship roles or summer roles where they'll just be doing diagnostics, and then we'll have a role afterwards or a guaranteed role that they can pick up.
And it's a lot of that just to do with funding opportunities as well.
I think it's funding. It's also awareness as well. Talking to school children that come through here, quite often they don't really know about this thing called plant disease. They're like, oh, we don't know plants get sick. I think in like places like this, in New Zealand, biosecurity is kind of entrenched everywhere. It's everywhere you go. It's at the airports. People understand that there's these things like Cody dieback and myrtle rust. But whether you a career at it is different. People don't really know what you need to study to do that. What does that kind of research entail? So I think we're not doing a good job in terms of creating that awareness at the university level, getting people interested at that young age, or even at the age where they're at university, and then advertising kind of the roles that you could be finding. And the other issue is, there's some work, but not necessarily not necessarily the jobs that you want to do. So like you here, for instance, there's just been a bit of a contraction because of funding, and we're worried again about that, maintaining and holding talent, because people are either shifting industries or going overseas to find opportunities. and then things start to shrink a little bit. So the projects that people pick up, the funding that people bring is getting less and less, and it's just this really spiral.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think an additional challenge that you and I probably face as well is that we're not, being more in the forest pathology space, we're generally not, well, we're not always working with species that are economically important as well. And so not
Yes.
in agriculture, we have that challenge of communicating the importance of the environmental impacts, but if there isn't any economic impact, it can be really challenging to get funding for those kinds of projects as well.
Yes, absolutely. Working on any kind of indigenous species is really tough.
Yeah.
And it's weird enough that you can't argue that tourism is an economic benefit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
people come here for the forests. They come here to see some of this natural vegetation. If that's all gone, who wants to come and see just a plain field of grass?
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, New Zealand is, I haven't had the privilege of going, but from everything I've seen, it is an absolutely fabulous part of the world as well. And it's definitely something worth protecting.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sort of, change tact a little bit, but I'm also curious to know. So obviously you had probably a longer PhD than the average sort of 4 to 5 years that people try to push through. But you're in a position now that you're leading a team, and you have been for several years now. So I'm curious just to hear from your experience, perhaps some of the decisions along the way that led to you taking that sort of longer time to complete the PhD, and if you think there are any trade-offs in doing that, or if it was actually very beneficial because it's led you to be in the position you are now as well.
Yeah, I didn't think even doing it part-time, I didn't think it was going to take this long. But yeah, there was a couple of things that happened. So as I was saying about my sort of postgraduate history, being involved in diagnostics, I had a part-time role, and so early on, with my supervisors, we kind of agreed that I was going to spend half my time, or about half my time, working in diagnostics, and the other half on the PhD. And I tended to sometimes drift away a little bit and probably procrastinated a bit and did more of the diagnostics because I was enjoying it more than the PhD at times, and that does happen. Sometimes you just get frustrated, or you hit a roadblock and you need to distract yourself. And so I mean, that was good. I think, again, so building that experience was really great. I became, in that role, I got to engage quite a lot with forestry practitioners. So working with foresters, working with the extension team. I spent a lot of time in field. I spent a lot of time working with students, training students. And eventually, I got to that place where I got to lead the actual team myself. So I wasn't just mentoring or training, but I was actually then becoming a leader. And I was a leader in the lab, but also within the institute as well. This was a professional role. There was an actual role at the university for that person, but because I was a student and moved into it, I didn't become an employee. I just managed to stay on my bursary as a PhD student, but I got to fill sort of the responsibility that person had within FABI. So they were on the managing committee of the institute, which was a senior kind of advisory strategic group, which allowed me to sort of kind of just observe, and I didn't have too much to say in kind of the decision making, but I really got to observe and learn from all the minds that were in the room. These are some very senior scientists, very well known in their field, plant pathologists, geneticists, and all those. But they were obviously making strategic decisions about where the institute was going, guiding the research. So it was it was a great privilege and a great opportunity to kind of see behind the curtains, which you don't really see as a student in an institute. You kind of just get on with your PhD, and so that was really, really sort of eye-opening to understand the challenges that they dealt with, but then also be kind of seen and respected, I suppose, amongst peers, which is great. And so, yep, I continued to do that because I saw benefit that it would have after the PhD. I thought it outweighed the length of time. I mean, most people kind of just assumed I have a PhD when I was talking to them. And I think that had to do with because I was, kind of surrounded and absorbing just everything, all the discussions that were happening, the issues of the day. I was kind of being kept aware of, and I could, participate in discussions and could hold my own in complex areas. So I think that helped a lot. Also had like I said, I had a passion with teaching students and working with them. So I really got involved in like our mentorship program. So I spent some time working with students as well. They helped on my PhD as a kind of trade. But that does mean it did take a bit of extra time to kind of mentor them. And so these mentorship students are undergraduate students that will come into the lab, get a taste of what postgraduate's life is like, and then decide, as a postgraduate degree, something I really want to pursue. And sometimes I had those students that were really good, and sometimes, they were like, oh, this is horrible. I don't want to do this. I want to go be a vet. And I'm like, great. It's exactly what you were here to find out. So I got involved in those. I have a passion for science communication as well. I've been trying to nurture that through my career. And that was also sort of the inspiration for that was from one of my co-advisors who writes a lot of general articles for the public. She writes a lot for like The Conversation. She really inspired me she's like, you're doing your research on taxpayers' money. It's important that you tell the taxpayer what you're doing, so we can continue to get that money. So I was like, this is a really good idea. Couldn't write for The Conversation because they typically want people that are experts in the field or have a PhD. So I had to hold off for a while, but I started to blog then on my own, just write my own blogs. Got some practice with science writing. Heard of a competition called FameLab, which was like a 3-minute kind of thesis thing. And I spent a lot of time doing that as well on the side. So entering these competitions, taking part, going to the workshops, attending as many workshops as I could, mostly free, where I could get free workshops. So I spent a lot of time upskilling as well on other skills I thought could be useful come once I finished my PhD. And again, it was all worth it. And then kind of the decision to go to New Zealand, I think delayed things because I was quite close to finishing at that stage. And in my mind, I was like, well, I could probably finish this quicker if I move away from doing the diagnostics at Fabi and moving to a role in New Zealand. I could probably just get away from kind of all the other things that I was trying to do, focus on just wrapping up the PhD because now I have a job that's pushing me to finish. They wanted me to get that PhD as fast as possible. But what I didn't take into consideration was just being out of sight, out of mind. When you don't see your supervisors every day, if I drop the ball, they're not chasing me. I have to pick that back up. So that really did slow things down a bit. But I was fortunate enough to fly back quite a few times. A lot of people can do that. I flew back to South Africa twice a year. I made sure I had face-to-face meetings with my advisors, so that we could push things along as well. And eventually we got there. And so I got some more. Now I've got like another 4.5 years of experience in the PhD. Working here as a role, and it's been full-time as well. So it's not a part-time role. So that's extra experience I count as value and I don't think anybody's looking at the time it took me to do my PhD. First, they're just like, you have one, it's fine. They're not going to be like, it's take you 10 years. It's not any less, valuable than somebody who did it in 4 or 3 years.
Yeah, and I guess at the end of the day, you've, all of the experience that you got throughout those roles is probably, more important than the actual PhD itself. Not to undermine, obviously, the the research that's gone into a PhD.
Yes,
but it sounds like there's similar challenges in holding on to people. And to your point as well, it's really interesting, and I think you've really highlighted the importance of students coming in to do some work experience as well, because you kind of you never know what you want, but you at least know what you don't want. And so if you come into these roles and think this is absolutely not for me, like you said, perfect. That is exactly what you want to get out of this, is understanding whether or not that kind of role is something you can see yourself in long term, because finding a job post PhD can be really challenging and a long process. If you go through all of that to end up in a job that you're not really happy in, it can be pretty demoralizing. So
absolutely,
it's a really good point. So I'm curious as well, you spoke a lot about science communication in there as well. And were the opportunities that you had, so for example, participating in FameLab or doing any of, any workshops or anything for increasing and improving your science communication skills, were they fairly accessible to find those opportunities? So you said some of it was free, but is it something that most students can just hop online and find those kinds of opportunities to learn? Or is it something that is potentially a bit prohibitive for students to access?
Yeah, I think once I was aware of it, it was easier to find those opportunities, so you know where to look, right? I'm trying to think some of the first workshops we did was actually university organized. So the university was trying to create more of a presence online for itself. So they were trying to get researchers to either submit them content or create some stories that they could put out there and create more attention for the university. So there was a lot of training around like media. How do you interact with the media? How do you write a general piece? So those were pretty good to start off with. And then this FameLab competition came along, and it was highlighted to us because the funding organization, so the National Research Foundation, was helping support some students to attend these. And because I had some NRF funding, I got some of the emails to say there was this opportunity, and that was funded by the British Council and was free to attend. And if you took part, they gave you free training. And then if you won, you got to go on a paid trip to kind of defend, or not defend, but take part in the international competition to be the actual global winner. And so I'd attended those a few times, and the nice thing is because they're free in the competitions, you can attend them as many times as you want. So I think for about 3 years I entered every year. I think they were getting sick of me. But I just thought it was a great experience. I mean, I wasn't actually there to win it. I don't think I could have. The quality of student, because these are all postgraduate students or either early career research. So we had a couple of postdocs taking part, Oh man, and anybody doing anything on human health was just, they were like the best, So it was hard.
What about the plants?
It was very hard to communicate that plant disease, plant health thing. It's a concept that people really don't understand. And so it was more difficult to communicate. So it was a great challenge because when you talk about malaria or HIV, people can relate quite easily. So I had a challenge. And I mentioned made it to the national finals, and they had a master class, which was fantastic. This was talking to a past, it was basically facilitated by a past alumni who'd won the competition and then started to work behind the scenes training the future speakers. And after that, I was pretty much hooked. I started to join different Facebook groups for science communication in Africa. They would be posting opportunities. Eventually, I got connected to one of the professors who started the science communication course. I think was the first one in South Africa, based at the University of Stellenbosch. And they were giving free, or I managed to get a bursary through them to do a six-week course in science communication, which was quite intensive. But that opportunity all basically came through this kind of FameLab network that I was part of. And then so you get into that network and you get to know the people kind of in that space, and just reaching out to them for opportunities helped me unlock those training training opportunities. And then when I came to New Zealand, again, being an early career researcher, we've got a good network here. People were sharing around opportunities, and there's been a few about kind of the science communication, because it's really important, not just for communicating science, but even in terms of like funding applications. There are some skills you learn there, talking to funders, talking to foresters, talking to nurserymen, you know, these kind of skills all help you in other parts of the job you don't realize. So even if you don't want to be a science communicator, there are skills there you'll learn.
Yeah, and it kind of builds confidence as well, doesn't it? It gives you a little bit more, perhaps some more authority in the way that we're communicating to people that may not be plant pathologists as well, or even within, you know, our own circles of plant pathologists, and learn to speak a bit more confidently. And the opportunities that are usually quite you know, from my experience, they're usually quite readily available for PhD students. And I think once you get into a professional career as well, it gets a little bit more challenging to allocate your time to those things. So taking the opportunity to do that while you're completing your PhD is, it's a fantastic way to skill up as well. So you said you had a blog. Are you still running a blog?
No.
Oh, okay.
I went to find it the other day because a colleague reached out and asked, you know, they want to, for their society, they want to start a student blog. And they were like, what do you use? What are you doing? You know, how did you do it back in the day? And I was like, oh yeah, I just had a WordPress account, and like, you know, I could integrate that into my social media, and it was easy to post. I could, you know, check the analytics pretty easily. Here's an example. And I went to go find my old page and I found it, and there it was. And I was like, oh my gosh, actually I was writing quite a lot. But then I stopped. And I was thinking about picking it up again.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic. And well, I think you're already writing a newsletter as well at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah, so that is if you could tell us a bit about the newsletter that you've got, and if it would be applicable.
Yeah. So I inherited that. So again, having that reputation of wanting to communicate, I think helped. So it's a newsletter that Scion's been running, for decades.
Oh wow.
As part of the Forest Protection, which was a group here at Scion, and it basically covers stories about forest health, so everything from entomology to pathology, and then some of the research that was going on as well. So we've got some printed versions of it, and some of the old stuff is actually on the Scion website, some of the old archived. And it used to be actually every month, but sort of again, with some of the changes that have happened recently, that's kind of now reduced to about once a quarter newsletter. And so I co-edit it with another early career researcher here. She's from the States, and is joined us about a year ago, and she helps me edit that newsletter. And so we push that out now every quarter. And also, again, one of those trying to reinvent it a little bit and try and change it up. So we're always looking for ideas to make it fresh.
No, and it can be challenging. I mean, there's plenty of fantastic research going on out there. It's just being able to tap into people's time to get those stories from them as well, because we're all a bit time poor. And it sounds like you've been at Scion, but it sounds like there's been a restructure, and has there been a reduction in team members as well, or is it what have the flow-on effects been of that?
Yeah, so we had a bit of a restructure when I first arrived in New Zealand, and that was just basically changing how the business hierarchy was. So it's now moved to a matrix system, and some people just weren't happy with that. So we had a lot of people retire or take jobs elsewhere, and there was some hiring. So I was one of those people that were hired to fill a critical gap. And then sort of probably about 2 years later, the science sector here has just taken a bit of a knock. It's one of those, again, funding, global politics, changes in national priorities, whatever. There's so many challenges, limited funding, the different CRIs, so the Crown Research Institutes here, basically weren't making as much money as they wanted to. So that led to a few redundancies. Some people taking voluntary, some having to be let go just because the work hasn't been there. So we have lost some capability and capacity over the years at the different CRIs. It's not just at Scion, but even at Plant Food and Ag Research. So it has been quite a turbulent period over the last, since COVID, really.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, a bit of a rocky few years, really. Yeah. And like you say, I don't think it's restricted to New Zealand. It seems like there's a lot of challenges in science across the globe at the moment of the funding. So yeah, it's great to see at least, we can come together and collaborate a little bit as well where we can, and maybe opine on some of the challenges as well. I wanted to also ask you as well, and it was something that you mentioned when you were talking about people giving you some advice towards the end of the PhD to start, putting your CV together and applying for jobs. To me, it sounds like you have probably had, and you've sort of said this yourself as well, more opportunities because of the people that you have met along the way and the people that you know. So how important do you think, and how much importance, I think what I'm trying to ask is how much importance you place on networking throughout, all the way through, even from undergrad all the way through to a PhD, rather than waiting until you're at the end and trying to put a CV together and apply for jobs cold. How much importance do you place on all of that networking and the opportunities that it gave you along the way?
Yeah, you have to network. Our supervisors said it all the time. Just go to the meetings, go talk to people, just get your name out there, really interact, which is quite hard. I don't know, I see myself as an introvert. I really find it difficult to talk to people at conferences, but again, through those kind of putting myself out there in those science communication competitions, taking on opportunities to get up in front and talk to people, you really do like build that confidence, which really helped me just, say hi to a few people. We also had a lot of opportunities. I think that's the other thing as well. We had quite a globally connected institute. I was doing a PhD at FABI, or at the university. FABI was just the institute. You don't get your degree there, but you can do your research there. And being really globally connected, not just through my supervisors, but actually as the institute. So we always had a lot of visitors coming through. We had a lot of international students based there from all over the world, from the US, from South America, from Asia. So you really had a nice, diverse community all the time. It always felt like this hum of activity, like all the time. There was a special seminar being held. There was a roundtable discussion being had. And people were talking about different things. You didn't have to necessarily go and just listen to a talk on a pathogen that you're interested in. There were, things on taxonomy. There were things on publishing. There were things on, science communication. There were things on policy. There was, so you always had these very interesting discussions going on, and you could always go along. You're encouraged to go along. And some people really made the most of those. And where I see students succeeding, so my peers and those that came before me, were the ones that really made the most of those opportunities. People got to meet their future postdoc advisors. They got to meet their future bosses there. And people really underestimate just how powerful that is. Just going along, being present, being, letting people know, like, oh, I am here. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm interested in. People don't do that enough. We tend to focus on, I need to get my degree in 3 years or 4 years. I need to just focus on my work, get out. The quicker I can get into the market, the better. But that cold thing doesn't play off. PhDs there's a few more PhDs today than there were back in the day. So a PhD doesn't really separate you anymore from the rest of your peers. You need to be doing something a bit more.
Yeah, and I think your career pathway has really demonstrated that, because instead of a focus on getting a PhD done in the shortest amount of time possible, you have really focused instead on rounding out your skill sets. So you've got the science communication skill sets, you have a lot of the technical skills to be able to carry out the diagnostics, but then you can take a step up from that and you have the skills to manage as well. So it allows you to dip in and out of every aspect of what you're doing as well. And it's really given you a very rounded out career profile, which is, really led you to a fantastic position that you're in now as well. So it's just a really great example of why it doesn't always have to be that you have to get your PhD done in the shortest amount of time. And these other skills are really important as well. And yeah, even just being able to communicate our science and going to workshops, doing all of those things, it's hugely valuable. Even in interviews as well,
Yes.
You want to be able to have some of those skills that can be transferable to interviews. I don't know what your interview process was like for Scion, but in my role now, I had to give a presentation. I was given a question about a particular scientific problem, and I had to give a solution to that in a presentation. So they're really keen to see that we can communicate our science effectively as well.
Yes.
So
had the same,
yeah.
And I had questions on leadership, so not just the science, but there was also the leadership. So tell us a bit, about some of the challenges you faced in, managing people, and what are the kind of solutions you came up with, and being able to communicate that quite well.
Yeah.
And not stumble over yourself really helps, make you look better in an interview.
Yeah. And to what you said earlier as well, it's just being able to differentiate. So I don't know if there's anything else you really wanted to highlight, Darryl. So, obviously you've had a very impressive pathway to where you are now, and
is it impressive?
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't feel impressive to me.
No. No, I really think it is. I mean, you've had some incredible experiences, and even just moving halfway across the world to to get a job is a massive step in itself. And you have, obviously built some great networks along the way, and I think it is impressive. I think, you're underselling yourself.
Yeah. Oh, we always tend to do that, eh?
Yes, we definitely do.
That's some good advice. Don't undersell yourself. Yeah.
No, don't undersell yourself. I think a lot of us have a lot more value to give than what we give ourselves credit for a lot of the time. So
yes.
Yeah. And are you? So I guess just more of a question out of curiosity, and perhaps for anyone that is going to read and listen to this after, are you open to people contacting you if they're wanting any, perhaps some advice on your career pathway, or
yes,
no, it'd be great to put you in touch with anyone that's perhaps considering a pathway in diagnostics as well. And just on general career pathways, and perhaps we can link to some of those places that you managed to find some experience in science communication as well. I think that would be really valuable to be able to share with the audience.
Yes, yep, absolutely. Happy to help.
Yeah, wonderful. All right. Unless you have any parting words of wisdom, we can probably wrap up there, or anything else to add if you had, just anything generally.
I think just to sum up everything, it's one of the questions you had listed about kind of that advice and thinking about the future. I think for anybody, it's anybody going on this journey into science, there's probably a view in our minds of what kind of that future looks like, and that's what we always work towards. My path has changed, several times, and you try to fight it, but don't really fight it. Like, just kind of go with it. I started off wanting to be a medical virologist. Opportunity changed fate, and I worked on plants, sort of plant health, and I kind of just stuck with it. I enjoyed it. I did it, and never really looked back. And even though, so we talked about kind of doing the diagnostics, it wasn't an idea of mine. It was a suggestion of my supervisor, and I said, let me try it. You know, I was like, oh, well, this will be really good. Let me see. And look, it got me the job today. Then, you know, going out for those sort of abstract, in a way, opportunities like Fame Lab, where the science communication competition, like, well, you don't really need to do that. I mean, I didn't want to necessarily speak in front of people. I didn't necessarily want to be a science communicator, but there was an opportunity to do some skills, and I did it, and I really enjoyed it, and I found a passion there that helped me then, you know, grow my career further. And so, yeah, my advice would be just, you've got an image ahead, great, go for it. That's the goal. But sometimes it's good to be distracted and go and pursue other things. They turn out well. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
You know, I was always told that any bit of education you get, any skill development, it's never a waste. You know, whatever you do, you know, if you learn to code in a program that you never use again, it's not wasted. There'll always be an opportunity. If you learn to get on stage and talk in front of people, that's never going to get wasted. If you're going to learn to identify or work on that pathogen, it's never going to be wasted. You know, these things will all be useful at some point, in one way, and some of it's unseen, and some of it's not immediately realized. You know, some of that stuff will just, you know, all of a sudden come out in 10 years. There'll be someone you met at a random workshop who really liked you, who said, oh, I still remember you from that time when we did that. Are you still doing it? And I think we underestimate kind of some of those interactions, those opportunities, which people shouldn't, you know, discount. I'm not saying go out and do everything, but don't say no.
No, of course. But at the same time, again, there's a lot of value in the networking. There's a lot of value in trying out different aspects of plant pathology as well. And this really goes for any career, is that I think you're right. We often see it, you know, we see the end goal and we think it's going to be a very linear process in getting there. But, you know, when I start to talk to people like yourself, the more I realize that that's really not the way that careers usually go. They're very far from linear, and all of these experiences are helpful. Even you talking about your blog, you haven't touched it in a long time, but still people are asking about it. So it has sticking power, some of these things, and it goes back to what we're saying. We often underestimate ourselves, but there is a lot of value in what we're doing, and there's a lot of value in the people that we meet as well. And even if you haven't spoken to someone in a year, it's totally fine to reach out as well. And you know, I don't know if you've had many experiences of, you know, I don't think I've ever had an experience of somebody just being flat out rude to me that I haven't spoken to them in a long time, or that, you know, it's out of the blue.
Most people are happy. They're happy to see you and find out where you are. We've kind of gone on separate paths, but then you get brought back together, and it's always just amazing. Amazing to see those people who you were in a workshop with, who were either master students and are now, you know, managing labs or heading up institutes. You're like, what? How do we get here? How are we the adults now? This is weird.
A bit scary, isn't it?
It is a bit scary, yeah, absolutely. Because we were always complaining about how the adults are always running things, and now we would do it
exactly. Now it's us.
Now it's us up there. So no, you're absolutely right. It's always fascinating. So, and always exciting to see just how well people are doing, and being able to like tap into that network, which you never thought you'd ever have access to, and then all of a sudden it's there, and you're like, wow, that's not so hard.
No, we're all just humans at the end of the day. And probably a bunch of introverted humans. So it helps just to reach out and take that bit of a leap.
Our interaction as well is that leap as well. I mean, we actually haven't met, in person.
No,
it's just kind of we've been in the same working groups, and like you say, you worked in Murderer, so I'm familiar with your name and your work. And
vice versa. You see, you know, people's names come up, and you were happy to be a guinea pig in one of my early experiments. So
yeah, happy to do it. Got to start somewhere, have to
yeah,
start somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think we can get sometimes caught up on things being perfect, having the perfect conditions to start something, but you just have to take the leap into things sometimes and see how it goes and iterate along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So hopefully we can re-interview you in a year and it'll be a bit smoother.
Yeah. I'll look back, and see how it was. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Laugh at ourselves and move on.
Yeah. Well, just imagine in 20 years or 30 years, you're digging up this, you've been doing the newsletter for so long, and you're like, well, let's go back to those early days. Like, what were we doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nice time capsule, all this.
Yeah, exactly. I can look back at my grey hair and
I was so young.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you recently had your graduation as well, so big congrats on being able to celebrate and enjoy that final milestone.
Yeah, such a great milestone. I showed in my prestige seminar, I don't think people are aware, but every time you register, you get a proof of registration and tells you how many years you've been enrolled as a student at the university. And on my final proof of registration, it's like years enrolled at the University of Victoria, 21 years. Everyone was like, what?
Yeah, like, cool. Thanks for the reminder.
I was like, how is that possible? I was like, I don't know. Should have got like some honors for paying student fees for that long. I was like, more than double like most PhD sort of roads.
Yeah,
but it was great. It was still good. I don't regret it. I won't change it for a second. I got unique experiences being there for that long. It was a different environment for me.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, and it's great to hear a less than linear pathway and some of the experiences that you've had and the the successes you've had as well. So great.
And people didn't give up on me. I think that's the other thing as well. You're always talking about it's that support around you as well. That because I think in some cases I've read horror stories. On social media, I followed like all these like PhD Fred things, all the meme groups, FML and all those kind of things. And a lot of people, complaining, things taking too long and their supervisors kind of just giving up on them, not giving them that support, and you almost identified by the success of your PhD, your identity is connected to your PhD, and you just think you're the most worthless person because that person has given up on you, which is not right. I mean, that's a two-way. It's a team, right? This is also the thing we forget is, yes, it's your PhD, but you're working with an advisory group that's meant to get you through. They wouldn't have invested in you starting if they didn't think you were capable, and they shouldn't lose hope. Because it's very easy for you as a student to just give up as well. That happens too many times, right?
Yes, it definitely does.
It's like, this is too hard. These people are too hard. I'm out.
Yeah. Well, like you said earlier as well, you're very much out of sight, out of mind, and so obviously you put the time in to keep engaged with supervisors in your advisory group. It also sounds like from what you're saying that they reciprocated very well in that as well, and you had that equal. You
had to drive it. They were very worried when I told them I was leaving. They were very worried. One of my co-advisors, because he's had it before, he's seen it, and that's his experience. He's like, I've had people leave to take jobs and they never finish, and that's true. I know some people that left, took jobs, said I'll finish this in 2 years. It's been 10 years. They didn't finish those PhDs, and so they were worried for me. But I mean, I knew the risk. And I decided to prove them wrong. Prove myself right that I could do this. And I made a commitment to say I was going to finish. It was always a dream of mine. I couldn't not do it. Yeah. And they did. They saw that. They were, I think, happy that I was coming back, and I stayed in contact, and I chased them when I could chase them, and they chased me when I needed chasing.
Yeah. And it's a very good point. It is very much a self-driven journey as well. You can have the best advisors in the world, and they give you all the support possible, but it really is a journey that you have to push yourself through, and there are a lot of bumps along the way. So,
it's one of these things, like the hardest thing ever. You asked about challenges. I think PhD was the toughest one to go through, because it really tests that your emotional kind of resilience.
Yeah.
You don't think it, but it really does. Because I never learned about imposter syndrome until I did a PhD. You know, I never learned about burnout until I did a PhD. You know, all of these kind of things. I was like, oh, I experienced it as a PhD, and you could get through it. Yeah, though I never really understood the true meaning of a support system until I did a PhD. You know, like all these things was like, wow, all coming to the forefront, and you have to deal with all that. And if you're not ready, prepared, or have the family or friends or the supervisors, it makes it really, really tough.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's where, you know, building these networks is also really helpful as well, because we talk about building networks to find jobs or to help us in our careers, but sometimes these networks are just great to have that support there, those people that you can reach out to when times are getting really challenging and ask for that bit of help, or ask for some advice as well, to get through that, because it's definitely not easy. How are you feeling on the back of all of it now? I mean, it's been a really long journey. I was going to stop this conversation, but here we are.
Yeah, you were trying to go, and I just kept talking the whole time.
No. Hey, if you have time, I have time. So yeah, I'm curious how, you know, you spoke about burnout and imposter syndrome, especially with the burnout. How do you feel after? Because it's a really long time to be completing a PhD and be working as well. So have there been any challenges with that, like with that transition out of a PhD now? Sometimes it can hit after. I know for myself, it was actually a bit of a weird period after my PhD finished. Less in the PhD, but more after it, I felt a little bit lost.
I think, lost is definitely one way to describe it. Trying to figure out what I need to fill up my time with. And the other, I think, part is just the sadness I have of not having this connection back to my advisors. Because that was a network that I was really tapped into. The PhD was a good connection back to Fabi in South Africa, to those researchers. So a little bit sad about that, I think. And it was also, again, I'd done it for so long, it was my identity. I was always, even to my friends and family, I was always the PhD student.
Yeah, the eternal PhD
student. So I'm having to live life like, what am I now? And so, I'm just looking for what's next, really. I mean, I've been in the job for a while. The PhD's done, I've got the job. You know, if you're finished and still looking for a job, I think that's kind of where you like maybe flounder a little bit. But I can pour some energy back into my role. And now that I've got time again, I'm trying to go into the science communication stuff again, trying to write more, trying to draw, trying to think about what I want to do in terms of the side hustle. Trying to figure out ways that I can develop and grow and unlock other opportunities outside of my Monday to Friday 8 to 5.
Yep. No, it sounds great. I know it can almost sound a little bit crazy to want to do something on the side, but you know, I've experienced this myself with Robogalia. It's almost you have 100% ownership over that side hustle or that side thing, and it's a really rewarding experience being able to have something that's truly your own. And obviously our research is to a certain degree, but if we're very much doing that in our day-to-day 9 to 5s, then having something on the side can actually be really rewarding as well. So I'm excited. I haven't actually seen your blog, so I'm excited.
I could share a link to back in, I don't know, 2015 or something was the last time I think I wrote something.
Into the archives.
Into the archives.
Yeah. Hey, look.
It was a good diary, a good coping mechanism. You'll see, like I wrote a lot of stuff about like how to cope with, where the end of the road is, and when you don't get there, how you just get through it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think if you do have a blog now, you're going to focus more on pathways, or will it be more on actual research and the science?
Yeah, there's two things I think I want to do there. I want to look at kind of supporting early career researchers.
Yep.
And then I want to do more. What I'm finding is there's still a lot of there's problems with communication between research and industry still. So trying to help industry sort of get on board or understand at least what the scientists are doing and why we push for certain research and why it's important, not just this applied. There's a lot of this moving to applied, but there's still a huge space for the fundamental. So I want to try and do that in my work in some of the science communication, is just really translate why the research is important, and try and get that in front of decision makers.
Yeah.
Don't know how I'm going to do that, but that's something I really quite passionate about doing.
No, and it sounds it sounds much needed as well. I was chatting to someone in Spain on Friday night that's also doing an interview, and he said exactly the same thing, that there's really not very clear communication lines between industry and research, and wanting to bridge that gap a little bit.
Yeah. There's no national strategy, or in terms of our research, I mean, there's a grand strategy, but there's no like national or industry or science strategy that kind of aligns or that's mattered. So everyone's trying to do their own thing, and it doesn't really align. And a lot of it then ends up just becoming reactive.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, we need a tool for this thing, or we need a new product to unlock this in the market. And you're like, well, we got to do some work to get there first.
Yeah, totally. No, it sounds much needed. Well, I'm excited to hear what you come up with. And
watch the space.
Yeah, maybe that will be our next interview.
That'll be good.
All right, Darryl, I am going to leave you now.
Enjoy your holiday. Sorry, your day off.
No, it's fine. Hey, side hustles. This is what we do.
Exactly.
No, so thank you so much. Again, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat, and thanks for sharing everything.
Yep, absolute pleasure. I look forward to reading the story and seeing what everyone thinks. It'll be good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll chat again soon.
All right, Darryl.
Okay.